It happened on a stormy night in the dead of winter. The wind howled through the trees like tortured souls, and the rain beat against my window like a relentless drum. I had always been a light sleeper, but that night, sleep eluded me completely. Little did I know that the horrors I was about to face were far worse than the insomnia that plagued me. As I lay in my bed, tossing and turning, I felt a growing sense of unease. The room was shrouded in darkness, the only light coming from the occasional flash of lightning. That's when it began. I felt an overwhelming weight pressing down on my chest, making it difficult to breathe. Panic surged through my veins as I realized I couldn't move, paralyzed. I'd heard of sleep paralysis before, but I'd never experienced it myself. I tried to scream, but my voice had abandoned me. And then I saw it. A shadowy figure loomed at the edge of my vision, barely visible in the dim light. It moved slowly, cautiously, as if testing my vulnerability. I could make out no features, just a shapeless darkness that seemed to swallow the very essence of the room. The fear that gripped me intensified, and I knew this wasn't just a case of sleep paralysis. Something was terribly wrong. The figure drew closer, and I could sense its malevolence. It whispered words, guttural and unintelligible, as if speaking in a language that had long been forgotten. The sound filled my ears, a cacophony of dread that sent shivers down my spine. I tried to look away, to shut my eyes and pray that it would disappear, but my gaze remained fixed on the entity. As it approached, the room grew colder, a bone-chilling cold that seeped into my very soul. I could see its eyes now, two blood-red orbs that glowed with an otherworldly intensity. They bore into me, and I felt a sense of violation that was beyond description. This was no ordinary sleep paralysis. This was something far more sinister. The entity reached out with its elongated fingers, its touch like ice on my skin. I could feel its presence inside me, an invasive force that wormed its way into my mind. It was as if I were being possessed, my very essence under siege by this malevolent being. I tried to fight back, to reclaim control of my own body, but it was a futile struggle. In that moment, I knew the demon's intent. It sought to take me, to inhabit my body and use it as a vessel for its dark purposes. I could feel it delving into the deepest recesses of my mind, uncovering my most intimate fears and desires. It reveled in my terror, feeding on it like a ravenous beast. The storm outside raged on, as if nature itself were protesting the evil that had invaded my room. But there was no escape. I was trapped, imprisoned within my own body, a helpless witness to my own possession. I could hear the demon's laughter now, a cruel and mocking sound that echoed in my mind. Hours passed, though it felt like an eternity, as the demon continued its relentless assault. It twisted my thoughts, distorted my memories, and left me with a sense of despair that was beyond comprehension. I begged for release, for the nightmare to end, but the demon only laughed harder, reveling in my suffering. And then, just as suddenly as it had come, the entity withdrew. The weight on my chest lifted, and I could move once more. I gasped for air, tears streaming down my face, my body drenched in sweat. The room was no longer dark. The storm had passed, and the first rays of dawn filtered through the window. I stumbled out of bed, my limbs trembling, and looked in the mirror. My reflection stared back at me, but it was different. There was a darkness in my eyes, a hollowness that sent a chill down my spine. I knew then that the demon had not left me entirely. It had left its mark, a lingering presence that would haunt me for the rest of my days. As the days turned into weeks and the weeks into months, I tried to go on with my life. But I could never escape the feeling that I was being watched, that the demon was still there, lurking in the shadows. I became obsessed with researching sleep paralysis, trying to find a way to banish the demon once and for all. But the more I delved into the subject, the more I realized the horrifying truth. The demon was not just a figment of my imagination. It was a real entity, a malevolent force that had been tormenting humanity for centuries, and I had become its latest victim. I began to experience episodes of sleep paralysis more frequently, each one more terrifying than the last. The demon's presence grew stronger, its whispers more insistent. It demanded that I do its bidding, that I carry out unspeakable acts in its name. I resisted with all my strength, but I knew that I was losing the battle. One fateful night, as I lay in bed, paralyzed once more, the demon appeared before me in all its dreadful glory. It spoke to me, not in whispers this time, but in a voice that echoed through the very depths of my soul. It told me that it was time to fulfill its dark purpose, which I was to be its instrument of destruction. I had no choice but to obey. As I carried out the demon's bidding, I watched in horror as my own hands committed unspeakable acts of violence. It was as if I were a passenger in my own body, unable to control my own actions. The demon reveled in the carnage, its laughter echoing in my mind, and I became a shell of my former self, a puppet under the demon's control. I watched as my relationships crumbled, as my sanity unraveled, and all the while, the demon's influence grew stronger. I knew that there was no escape, that I was imprisoned to a life of eternal torment. And so, dear reader, I write these words, for it is not a mere hallucination or a trick of the mind. It is a real and malevolent entity, one that can possess your very soul and drive you to unspeakable madness. As for me, I am beyond redemption. I am a vessel for the demon's darkness, a slave to its insatiable hunger for suffering. I can only hope that my words serve as a cautionary tale, a testament to the horrors that lurk in the darkest corners of the night.